Hello YouTube, what's going on today? This is Snowflarky Zemos, and I'm here today to bring my Divine Serpent deck profile for y'all. Divine Serpent is a really cool boss monster, from the Ori Kalkos arc. It's pretty fun, and so I've always had these beautiful ultra rare copies that I wanted to play, so I put a little something together to play in a casual duel circle. And, it's a pretty easy card to splash in. It has an easy summoning condition that just requires a monster to get destroyed. So I figured I could splash it in any kind of deck build that I had before. So I found something I've been playing and has been working out pretty well in my casual duel circle. So if you like the card, check it out. We'll see what we're doing. Starting off with our monsters, I am playing 3 copies of the Divine Serpent itself. Since I built this deck around the Divine Serpent, I'm playing 3 because I want to see it, I want to get the payoff that the deck is built for. If you don't know what the Divine Serpent does, pretty cool boss monster, so you can't normal summon or set it. You have to special summon it by its own effect, and that effect, of course, is that if a monster you control is destroyed by an opponent's attack, or card effect, you can pay half your life points to special summon this card from your hand. So that's a pretty costly, cost. Definitely a reason that keeps this card from being actually good. But life points, you always can pay half your life points, so you'll always be able to do that. You just might end up paying a lot depending on how early you get this card out. So if you pay half your life points, you special summon this card. It cannot be targeted by card effects, which is pretty cool. A little protection. And if this card attacks an opponent's monster during the damage step only, you negate the effects of that face-up monster while it's face-up on the field. So basically, it'll negate any effects that would protect it from being destroyed by battle, or maybe something that's boosting its attack, or, anything like that. It's not general effect negation, just mostly effect negation that makes sure you're going to win the battle, and there's not a monster effect that will be destroying Divine Serpent instead. So you negate their effects while they're face up on the field. Also, their attack becomes half of their original attack power, which is important because that gives you the way to win over the battle without just crashing your Serpent. And then, of course, once per battle, if this card battles during damage calculation, you can make this card's attack become equal to the highest original attack on the field. Your choice if tied. So that just means Divine Serpent will become tied with the strongest monster, and if you're battling the strongest monster, well, then its attack is going to get half, so you're going to win the battle. So you can do that at any time. So even if you summon Divine Serpent on your opponent's turn and they attack into it, you can at least take a equal trade. But if you go, if you're getting Divine Serpent out and going to wreak havoc with it on your turn, you want it to have the high attack. You copy the highest attack power, and basically you keep that attack unless you see a higher attack power that you want to gobble up. And yeah, so just, big beat stick monster with, a little protection. It's a good entry level playground boss monster. And I think it's pretty cool. I like reptiles. I like the big snake. So it was a no-brainer for me to have fun playing this card. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of Zombino. As many of you have seen on the channel, I am a normal monster duelist, so I'm using some normal monster and Tenyi support to just help flow the deck to get to the Divine Serpent and, just give, myself something else to do with this deck and duel. Normal monsters and Tenyis are pretty good for a casual setting, so, this works out well. Zombino is in here. It's a 2000 attack, 4-star normal monster, which is one of, 2000 attack, 4-star normal monsters are the best for normal summoning. And this one is pretty useful because it's Earth, so that allows us to possibly go into Naturia Beast, which will win some matchups. So Zombino is in here for that reason. Next up, I am playing 2 copies of Mystery Shell Dragon. Probably should just be Gene Warped Werewolf because there's not too much use of the worm synergy in this build in particular. But it does have some, so I'm playing it just to test it out. The Tenyi monsters are worms. We have card effects that work with worms. And that could be pretty useful. So trying out 2 Mystery Shell Dragon. This might get changed for 2 Gene Warped Werewolf or just another Earth monster so that every Earth monster could be Naturia Beast because it's such a big win con. But for right now, we're just playing the 2 Mystery Shell Dragon. Next up, getting in to our Tenyi monsters, we are playing 3 copies of Tenyi Spirit Chitana. Essentially, all the Tenyi monsters say that if you control no effect monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. So, you know, these are all free special summoning bodies, and a lot of them are level 4, you know, let you go into link plays, or you can even go into some XZ's plays with a lot of the level 4s and the level 4 normals, so that's pretty cool. And then, of course, for the Tenyi effect, Chitana says that if a non-effect monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your hand or graveyard, target one of those destroyed monsters, special summon it, then you can destroy one monster your opponent controls. So, you know, they remove your vanilla, you get it back, you destroy a monster. That's pretty good. You know, get some, you know, pretty powerful card. Finds its use for sure. Next up, I am playing 2 copies of Tenyi Spirit Nahada. Another one of the level 4 ones. You special summon it the same way as all the other Tenyis, and this one's Tenyi effect is, of course, that if your face-up non-effect monster is battling an opponent's monster, you can banish this card from your hand or graveyard to make the monster it's battling lose 1500 attack. So kind of honest-like effect. 1500 is pretty big. Definitely lets you battle over a lot of stuff that you otherwise might not be able to, and get in extra life point damage to help seal out a game. Next, I am playing 2 copies of Tenyi Spirit Mopora. Tenyi Spirit Mopora is one that if your non-effect monster is targeted by a card effect, you can banish this to negate and destroy that card. So that's pretty cool. You know, deals with pesky back row or pesky monster effects if you don't have your field spell up, and the level 4 is nice. I am playing 2 copies of Tenyi Spirit Adhara. This is the level 1 Earth Tuner, which allows us to go into Naturia Beast, of course, and of course, for the Tenyi effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard if you control or your hand if you control a non-effect monster, and if you do, you can add a Tenyi's monster other than Adhara that was back to your hand. So, you know, add the banished Tenyi back to your hand, allow you to summon it, allow you to reuse it, use it to grab whatever Tenyi you need, and you'll be off to the races. And lastly, I am playing 2 copies of Tenyi Spirit Vishuddha. Vishuddha is the 7-star 1500 attack one, which, you know, has to be special summoned the same way as all the other Tenyi Spirits. But if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can banish this card from your hand or graveyard to target one card on the field and return it to the hand. So bounce something back to the hand, a back row that you don't want to deal with, you want to push for game, a problematic monster, you know, you just throw them all back in the hand. So yeah, the Tenyi numbers are fairly interesting in this deck because we're not playing the typical combo heavy summon a lot of extra deck monsters, which, you know, maybe is the better way to play this deck for sure. But, you know, I have a different interesting way that I like to play that kind of allows me to play more trap cards, something I really like. So those are the ratios I am opting to go with for this build. Next up, we're getting into our spell cards. I am playing 2 copies of Unexpected Die. Unexpected Die is a spell card that says if you control no monsters, special summon a level 4 or lower normal monster from your deck. So, you know, just a way to summon a monster right from the deck. Special summon, so it can get us more of a bigger board presence. You know, use it to pull out Zombino, use it to pull out Mystery Shell Dragon. Just a pretty cool way. You know, we're playing normal monsters. We might as well play a couple ways to tutor one out of the deck right out the gate. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. One of the pluses of playing this kind of style, you know, trap card normal stun deck using Tenyi support is that I can play Extravagance, which normally is a little too punishing for a regular Tenyi build. So Extravagance, of course, turns our extra deck into card advantage. We banish 3 to 6 random cards from our extra deck face down, and we draw 1 card for every 3 that we did. So, you know, 6 extra deck cards become draw 2. That's pretty cool. We have to play it at the start of main phase 1, of course, and we cannot use any more draw effects during the turn after we play this card. So you do have to keep that in mind because there are other ways to draw cards, which we will be getting to in just a moment. Next up for the spells, I am playing 3 copies of Flawless Perfection of the Tenyi. Definitely a bit overkill to play 3 copies of this card, but this card's pretty important. It makes it so that all non-effect monsters on the field are unaffected by monster effects, which is a huge effect, very powerful, and can be quite a pain for an opponent to deal with. And on top of that, if you control a non-effect monster or a face-down monster while your opponent special summons an effect monster once per turn, you can draw 2 cards. So pretty sick, drawing 2 cards, especially when a lot of them are Tenyis, which you can use their effects from your hand. You know, that's pretty nice. Keeps the deck going, keeps the deck moving. Like I said, 3 might be overkill because once you have 1 on the field, you know, the others are normally dead weight. But you always want to make sure you have this card, so you definitely want to have a replacement, and we want to see it as quickly as possible. To help see it as quickly as possible, of course, we are also playing a copy of Terraforming. Searches a field spell from your deck. Very cool. We could adjust the ratio, and it is something I will test, of running maybe 2 of these, and then a Terraforming and maybe a Metaverse, just, you know, opting more in the deck thinner. That can still brick in its own ways, but we'll see. That's the current ratio, so that's it for the spell cards. Next, we are moving into our trap cards. Starting off, we are playing 3 copies of Waterfall of Dragon Souls. Now, this is the card that kind of allows this version, this playstyle of Tenyi to work in any regard. It's essentially a trap card that says you can activate one of these effects. You can either add a worm type monster from your deck to your hand, which is pretty good. Sometimes we'll use that, but mostly we're using the second effect, which is send any number of worm type monsters from your hand and / or face up from your field to the graveyard to draw cards equal to the number of monsters you sent plus 1. So essentially, when we have a handful of Tenyis and we have this card, we can send those Tenyis to the graveyard. Now, of course, in the graveyard, those Tenyis can still use their effects, and it'll draw us additional cards. So we'll have cards to play on an additional turn. Maybe we dig into Divine Serpent. Maybe we even fill our hand with more Tenyis so that we have basically access to every Tenyi we need. And if we don't have Tenyis to grab, if we don't have Tenyis to discard, we can grab one with the second effect. So the card is not even dead. It still makes use. And also one of the reasons that we're playing some copies of Mystery Shell Dragon, because if we have excess normal monsters that are clogging our hand, well, Mystery Shell Dragon can become, draw power, which is pretty cool. So definitely, lets us get through all our Tenyis, lets us get to the Divine Serpent, lets us get to, cards to follow up on a future turn. So, very much like Waterfall of the Dragon Souls. For the next card, I am playing 3 copies of Fists of the Unrivaled Tenyi. This is the Tenyi counter trap card that says when a spell, trap card, or monster effect is activated while you control face-up non-effect monster, negate the activation, and you just negate the activation. It does not negate and destroy like the Solemn, so you got to keep that in mind. And then, of course, if this set card you control is destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon 1 non-effect monster from your extra deck. So that's a pretty cool effect. That can get you access to a pretty large, body monster kind of for free, and, makes it not punishing to just have this card get destroyed. Now, for safety measure, in case you can't get to a non-effect monster, which is kind of hard in this deck, which is why 3 of these hasn't been a problem, you could, sub one of these out for a copy of Solemn Judgment, which is just the negate from paying half your life points. I like keeping my life points, especially since Divine Serpent makes me pay them. And just playing 3 copies of this card instead, because it doesn't break too often, but something to keep in mind. I'm always telling folks that when it comes to playing trap card decks, you have to always be adjusting your trap card lineup for, decks that you're playing against. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of Storming Mirror Force. As a pretty casual deck, sometimes I can get away with activating and resolving a Storming Mirror Force, and being able to do so is huge. Kind of in weaker decks like this, I always kind of have the deck philosophy that you got to play these risky cards that, like, this could be stopped or destroyed before the battle phase, but if you succeed in activating them, they're usually pretty game-winning. Against certain boards, people who have spent their hands and built up a board, Storming Mirror Force can kind of blow them out, keep them in the clear. And of course, if they've already played through all their resources, it might be hard to recover their board. So pretty good. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you return all your opponent's attack position monsters to the hand. So that's nice because it gets around monsters that are protected from destruction and whatnot. Definitely what makes Storming Mirror Force the best Mirror Force. Um, pretty good. Next, I'm playing one copy of Blazing Mirror Force. I found myself kind of interested in having a fourth Mirror Force effect. So I've opted to just play Blazing Mirror Force. Blazing Mirror Force is just like Mirror Force. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, destroy as many of their attack position monsters as possible. Blazing Mirror Force just has an additional effect where both players will take damage equal to half the attack of those destroyed monsters. This is one of my favorite trap cards to play just in general. Uh, Mirror Force, that, when you don't have to worry about destruction, Blazing Mirror Force is of course good enough, and that life point burn damage lowers the life point gauge for both players, and that allows you to maybe do a counter push that will get that extra, that it gives you the extra damage to seal up the game in the next turn or two. Very important for kind of stun anti-meta strategies. It's been quite handy. Less good if you're playing against high power level decks. So, always something you can keep in mind. And last on the trap cards, I am playing 2 copies of Lost Wind. Lost Wind is a pretty cool trap. Target a face-up special summon monster on the field, negate its effects, which is pretty nice, and then also its original attack is halved. If a monster is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck while this card is in the graveyard, you can set this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. So pretty good effect, lowers attack, negates effects, that's pretty nice. And of course, just the ability to recycle it is just quite a handy thing to have, making your opponent have to deal with it again, or having it, on your next turn to answer whatever monster your opponent just special summon is pretty cool. Very big fan of Lost Wind. That does seal up the trap lineup. One thing to keep in mind, and sometimes I have to sub it, is of course spell and trap card destruction, which is a bit missing. So, any of those trap cards could become 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster, or Twin Twister, or something. And that is our main deck. Now we're going to go into our extra deck. Like I said, as an extravagant style trap card build, the extra deck is not as big as in a more traditional Tenyi combo build, but you'll still definitely be going into it. So I've tried to order it by kind of the order of importance. So we'll go through and talk about some of those monsters now and when you will make them. First up, 3 copies of Monk of the Tenyi. This is definitely the most important one in the extra deck, mostly because if we don't have access to any of our main deck normal monsters, but we have a Tenyi, we want to try to make Monk of the Tenyi so that Monk of the Tenyi on the field can have our Fists of the Unrivaled Tenyi and our Flawless Perfection of the Tenyi be live. We want to get that draw, we want to have those negates, so if we can't get the monster out of our deck, sitting on a monk is sometimes what we have to do. We're definitely playing 3 monks because we don't want to banish all these off extravagance. We want at least 1 to stay around, so monk is a must at 3. Next, we are playing 3 copies of Shaman of the Tenyi, probably our next best option and next most useful. It's just a link monster that requires 2 worm monsters, and of course you can discard 1 card to target a worm monster from your graveyard and special summon it. That includes other extra deck monsters we have, that includes Mystery Shell Dragon, that includes Monk of the Tenyi. With only 2 worm monsters, this one is pretty easy to go into. And of course, once per turn, when an attack is declared involving a face-up non-effect monster you control, you can destroy 1 card on the field. So, a useful card destruction effect lets you, do more with your non-effect monsters when they attack. So definitely a card to keep in. Another card we don't really want to banish all of, so I am playing it at 3. Next up, I am playing 2 copies of Gaia Saber, the Lightning Shadow. This is a Link 3 non-effect monster with 2600 attack. We're actually opting to play more copies of this over Berserker of the Tenyi because the Berserker of the Tenyi requiring a Link monster restrictive is a bit more restrictive than 2+ monsters for a Link 3. You know, any combination of 3 monsters, Tenyis or whatnot, can become this guy. You know, 2600 non-effect body, so big body that is a card that allows all our Tenyi cards to be live, is definitely something we want. Only playing 2 copies because we are still playing a copy of Berserker. Next up, I am here is a copy of Naturia Beast. We are playing some Earth normal monsters. And with the 4-star Zombino and Adhara, we can make Naturia Beast, which requires an Earth Tuner and 1 or more non-Earth Tuner monsters. And Naturia Beast is in here because, honestly, in the right matchups, Naturia Beast just wins you the game. During either player's turn, when a spell card is activated, you can send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Pretty cool. You know, negate the effects, and it's not once per turn, so as long as you have 2 cards to send from the top of your deck, your opponent can't play any spell cards. I think I have some more copies of this card that I'm going to sleeve up, so expect that you would see 3 copies of this in this build, just because it's another card we don't want to banish off Extravagance, and some of the stuff that comes after would be replaced, probably the Draco Masters. But Naturia Beast, very powerful. Next, I'm playing a Berserker of the Tenyi. This is just the stronger non-effect Link 3. It's got 3000 attack. The only difference is that it requires a Link monster, so you will need something like Monk of the Tenyi to already be made, and that restriction kind of usually makes it harder to make than Gaia Saber. And, you know, for 400 less attack, that's not that big of a deal since attack's power isn't too much. Then, of course, I'm playing 2 Draco Masters of the Tenyi. This is probably the card that would get replaced for more Naturia Beast, but Draco Masters is a pretty cool Link 3 boss monster you can make. It requires 2+ monsters, including a Link monster, and it cannot be destroyed by battle with an effect monster. Pretty cool. And if you control no other effect monsters than this card, you can destroy effect monsters your opponent controls up to the number of non-effect monsters you control and or in your grave. So any Monk of the Tenyis, any of the Vanillas that are on the field in the grave, you can destroy monsters with this. So pretty cool. If you don't have Divine Serpent, you don't have any effect monsters, definitely something worth going into. If you need to sit for a little bit, protect from battle, destroy things, worth considering, but Nat Beast is probably better, so it'll probably get replaced. Next, I'm playing a copy of Gemnite Furl. This is a non-effect rank 4, which is pretty easy to make. You know, any of the Tenyi monsters and a normal monster, you know, any of them can make Gemnite Pearl, which is a 2600 non-effect monster that keeps all our Tenyi cards live, so definitely something to consider. Also a big fan of that card, think it looks pretty cool. Next, I'm playing a copy of Baguska, the Tired Tapir. So Baguska is a rank 4, requires 2 level 4s, and Baguska is a pretty good card that can buy you lots of time. Once per turn, during your standby phase, you must attach material from this card, or this card is destroyed. But essentially, with Baguska, you special summon it in defense, and then when it's on the field, all monsters are shifted to defense, and defense position monsters can't activate their effects. So it's kind of like a 2-turn skill drain for you and your opponent. You can even just put it up and then put it into attack on the next turn, so it's one-sided for a turn or 2. Pretty cool. You know, sometimes if you need to stall monster effects, just stall a turn or 2 to get 1 or 2 more cards. Baguska can do that for you. And then, of course, last, I am playing a copy of the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. This is mostly in here to be the main card to special summon off of a destroyed Fist of the Unrivaled Tenyi, just because it's a non-effect monster with 4,500 attack. That's as big as it gets. And of course, you get to show off a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Very cool to do, and in here for that reason. But, you know, as only 1 copy, it's likely you might banish this off of Extravagance, but you know, don't worry too much. You can summon any of the other big non-effect monsters like Berserker or Pearl. Not as strong, but yeah, you know, we can't have everything. So that is it for the extra deck. All right, well, that concludes the Divine Serpent deck profile here. Like I said, you know, just a fun, silly deck to pull out at Duel Night. Allows me to play Divine Serpent in a way that, you know, I actually get the card out on the field. And as far as playground casual setting go, this deck performs well enough. Just, you know, being obnoxious, just mainly because of the high power level of Tenyi in a very casual environment. And, you know, so it's pretty cool. I enjoy it. Let me know in the comments if you play Divine Serpent in any decks and how you like to play it. Or just in general, I really like these kind of standalone big dumb boss monsters. You know, they're not great, but they're fun. So I find a way to play them. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for stopping by. Check out the other profiles on the channel if you're interested. I'll have more being uploaded soon. Catch you in the next one.